Ladies and gentlemen, today we gather to discuss an urgent matter: how to safeguard the precious gift of being chosen. You see, being chosen is not a badge you wear, it's a mantle you carry. And while this status is an honor, it is not guaranteed. Many are called, but few truly live as chosen ones. Why? Because they fail to protect what God has entrusted to them. Your purpose is the compass that guides your life, the divine assignment imprinted on your heart from the moment you were created. To neglect it is to disregard the essence of your existence and forfeit the power and direction that come with being a chosen one. Purpose gives life meaning, shapes your decisions, and fuels your passion. Without it, life becomes a series of empty pursuits, leading nowhere significant. Neglecting your purpose doesn't happen overnight. It is often a gradual drift, unnoticed at first, as distractions, fears, or competing priorities take center stage. It begins when the urgent overrides the important, when the temporary allure of comfort or success drowns out the call of destiny. This drift may seem harmless initially, but it carries devastating consequences. When you fail to nurture your purpose, you lose the sense of identity and clarity that sets the chosen apart. Purpose is not just about doing, it is about being. It is not solely the actions you take, but the alignment of your heart, mind, and spirit with the will of your Creator. It is the internal compass that keeps you grounded and ensures that your energy is directed toward what truly matters. Neglecting it is like silencing an inner voice that constantly calls you toward greatness. For instance, without purpose, even achievements lose their luster, leaving you with a lingering sense of emptiness despite outward success. One of the most common reasons people neglect their purpose is fear of failure, fear of judgment, or even fear of success. The weight of responsibility that comes with being chosen can feel overwhelming. The enemy often uses this fear to paralyze you, convincing you that the task ahead is too great or that you are unworthy of the calling. But fear is a liar, and every moment spent entertaining it is a moment lost in fulfilling your purpose. Another cause of neglect is distraction. We live in a world filled with noise. Demands from work, family, and society all vying for our attention. It is easy to become so consumed with daily survival that we forget to focus on eternal significance. Social media, entertainment, and the pursuit of material wealth can pull you away from what truly matters. These distractions are often subtle, disguised as opportunities or obligations, but they can derail your focus and rob you of your destiny. Inspiration has often been the most important distraction for most of us. Neglecting your purpose also stems from a lack of discipline. Being chosen requires intentionality. Purpose must be pursued daily through prayer, study, and action. It is not enough to know your calling, you must actively work toward it. Without discipline, even the most compelling vision can wither, leaving you stagnant and unfulfilled. Discipline fuels consistency, and consistency is what turns potential into impact. The weight of neglecting your purpose extends beyond your life. Your calling is rarely about you alone. It is interconnected with the lives of others. When you neglect your purpose, you not only hinder your growth, but also the growth of those who are meant to be impacted by your obedience. Think about it. Your purpose could be the key to someone else's breakthrough, the solution to a problem, or the inspiration that transforms lives. To neglect it is to withhold that gift from the world. Lastly, neglecting your purpose grieves the one who called you. When God entrusts you with a divine assignment, He equips you with everything you need to fulfill it. To set that aside is to question His wisdom and provision. It is a form of disobedience that severs the intimacy between you and your Creator. Purpose is not just about accomplishing tasks. It is about deepening your relationship with God as you partner with Him to bring His vision to life. Neglecting your purpose is like abandoning the very map that leads to your destiny. The cost is too great, the stakes too high. Purpose is not just a gift. It is a responsibility, one that must be guarded, nurtured, and fulfilled with diligence and faith. Integrity is the cornerstone of a chosen life. It is the unshakable foundation upon which trust, influence, and credibility are built. Compromising integrity is not just a moral lapse. It is a direct assault on the essence of what it means to be chosen. It is the gradual erosion of character, often masked as small concessions or justifications, that ultimately dismantles the very platform on which your calling rests. Integrity demands consistency between your words, actions, and values. It requires that you do what is right, not because it is easy or convenient, but because it aligns with the principles you claim to uphold. To compromise it is to create a fracture in your character, a breach that can grow over time until it collapses under its own weight. Such a collapse is not just personal. It affects those who look to you for guidance, inspiration, and leadership. The process of compromising integrity often begins subtly. It might start with a small decision, telling a half-truth to avoid conflict, cutting corners to save time, or making an exception just this once. These actions may seem insignificant in the moment, but they set a dangerous precedent. Every compromise weakens your resolve and makes it easier to justify the next one. Over time, these small choices accumulate, eroding the trust others have in you and the trust you have in yourself. Trust is one of the most precious assets of the chosen. It takes years to build but can be destroyed in an instant. When people see you compromise your integrity, it casts doubt not only on your character but also on the authenticity of your calling. A leader who cannot be trusted to uphold their values loses their ability to influence others. People are drawn to authenticity, and when that authenticity is compromised, the connection is severed. The temptation to compromise integrity often arises in moments of pressure. Perhaps you face a situation where the truth could cost you a relationship, a job, or an opportunity. In such moments, the allure of an easier path can be overwhelming. But the cost of yielding to that temptation far outweighs the immediate benefit. Integrity is about standing firm in your values, even when it is inconvenient or costly. It is about choosing what is right over what is expedient. Compromising integrity also diminishes your self-respect. When you act in a way that contradicts your principles, you create internal conflict. This conflict can manifest as guilt, shame, or a sense of unworthiness. Over time, it can undermine your confidence and hinder your ability to walk boldly in your purpose. The chosen are called to operate with a sense of divine authority, but that authority is weakened when your conscience is burdened by compromise. Moreover, integrity is not just about public behavior, it is about private decisions. What you do when no one is watching speaks volumes about your character. It is in those unseen moments that integrity is truly tested and refined. The chosen are called to be examples, and that example must be consistent both in public and in private. A life of integrity requires vigilance, self-awareness, and a commitment to accountability. The consequences of compromising integrity are far-reaching. It can damage relationships, hinder opportunities, and even disqualify you from your calling. The chosen are not immune to the consequences of their actions. In fact, their influence makes those consequences even more significant. When a chosen one falls, it reverberates beyond their own life, impacting those who look to them for guidance and inspiration. Finally, compromising integrity grieves the one who called you. It is a betrayal of the trust God has placed in you, and a denial of the responsibility that comes with being chosen. Integrity is not just about adhering to a set of rules. It is about honoring the relationship you have with your Creator. It is about living in a way that reflects His character and brings glory to His name. To compromise it is to stray from that path, risking not only your earthly influence, but also your eternal reward. Disobedience to divine principles is one of the most dangerous actions a chosen one can take. It is a direct deviation from the path laid out by the Creator, a rejection of the guidance that ensures success, protection, and alignment with your purpose. Divine principles are not arbitrary rules. They are timeless truths designed to bring about the fullness of your destiny. When you step outside these principles, you not only expose yourself to unnecessary struggles, but also risk severing the connection that empowers your calling. Obedience to divine principles is a hallmark of those who are chosen. It is through this obedience that they demonstrate their trust in God and their commitment to His will. Disobedience, on the other hand, is an act of rebellion. It says, "I know better than the one who called me." Such an attitude leads to a path of self-destruction, as it undermines the very foundation of what it means to be chosen. One of the most profound examples of this is found in the life of King Saul. Chosen by God to lead Israel, Saul's downfall began with an act of disobedience. Instead of following God's specific instructions, he allowed his own reasoning and the opinions of others to dictate his actions. What seemed like a small deviation, a decision to keep spoils of war, was in fact a blatant disregard for God's command. This disobedience cost Saul his kingdom and his legacy, proving that no matter how gifted or anointed someone is, disobedience can strip them of their status as chosen. Disobedience to divine principles often stems from a lack of trust. When you question whether God's ways are truly best, you open the door to doubt and self-reliance. This lack of trust can lead you to prioritize your desires, logic, or circumstances over the clear instructions God has given. But divine principles are not suggestions. They are the framework through which God's promises are fulfilled. And they are the framework through which God's promises are fulfilled. Ignoring them is like trying to build a house without a foundation. Collapse is inevitable. Another root of disobedience is pride. Pride convinces you that your way is superior, that you are capable of achieving success on your own terms. This arrogance blinds you to the wisdom and authority of God, causing you to make decisions that are not aligned with His will. Pride led Lucifer, once a highly exalted being, to fall from grace. His disobedience was born out of a desire to exalt himself above God, a tragic reminder that pride is the beginning of rebellion. The consequences of disobedience to divine principles are far-seeing. It creates a ripple effect that impacts not only your life, but also the lives of those connected to your calling. When Jonah disobeyed God's command to go to Nineveh, his actions endangered the lives of the sailors on the ship he boarded to flee. Disobedience disrupts the divine order, bringing chaos and unnecessary suffering. Even when forgiveness is granted, the scars of disobedience often remain, serving as reminders of the cost of rebellion. Disobedience also diminishes your spiritual authority. The chosen operate under divine authority, which flows from their alignment with God's will. When you disobey, you step out of that alignment, cutting off the flow of power and favor that sustains your purpose. This loss of authority weakens your ability to lead, influence, and fulfill your assignment. You may still possess natural gifts, but without divine backing, their impact is severely limited. So, at its core, disobedience grieves the heart of God. He has given His principles not to burden you, but to bless and protect you. Disobedience to divine principles is a serious matter. It is not merely about breaking rules. It is about breaking trust with the one who called you. The chosen are held to a higher standard because of the weight of their calling. To disregard the principles that uphold that calling is to risk losing the very identity and purpose that make you chosen. As for the exorcism of the commandments, make no mention of those words. They are banishment and commandment that make you chosen. Pride and self-reliance are silent destroyers of the chosen, creeping into the heart under the guise of confidence or independence, but ultimately leading to separation from the very source of your strength. These traits are particularly dangerous because they are often celebrated by the world, yet they are contrary to the divine principles that sustain those who are called. The moment you begin to rely solely on your abilities and elevate your achievements above the grace of God, you set yourself on a path of spiritual decline. Pride begins with a subtle shift in perspective. It whispers that your success is the result of your own efforts, that your wisdom is sufficient, and that you no longer need the guidance of the one who called you. This mindset is dangerous because it blinds you to your dependence on God. You may still acknowledge Him with your lips, but in your heart you begin to operate as though His presence is optional. Pride distorts your vision, causing you to place confidence in temporary accomplishments rather than eternal truths. Self-reliance often follows pride, as it stems from the belief that you can navigate life's challenges on your own. It leads to decisions made without consulting God, actions taken without prayer, and a life lived without the humility to seek divine counsel. Self-reliance is deceptive because it offers a false sense of control. You may feel empowered for a season, but the weight of carrying your destiny without divine support eventually becomes unbearable. The Bible is filled with warnings about the dangers of pride and self-reliance. One of the most striking examples is found in the story of King Nebuchadnezzar. He was a ruler of great power and influence, yet his pride led him to declare, "Is not this the great Babylon I have built by my mighty power and for the glory of my majesty?" In that moment, he exalted himself above God, forgetting that all authority comes from the Creator. Claiming that all authority comes from the Creator, his pride resulted in his downfall, as he was humbled to the point of living like an animal until he acknowledged that it is God who grants power and establishes kingdoms. We finally moved away. Pride also distances you from others. It creates a barrier that prevents meaningful relationships as it fosters an attitude of superiority and self-sufficiency. The chosen are called to serve, but pride makes service impossible because it shifts the focus from others to yourself. When you are consumed by pride, you seek recognition and validation rather than genuine connection and purpose.
Make a fact.
This isolation not only weakens your relationships, but also diminishes your ability to fulfill your calling. Self-reliance further compounds this isolation by cutting you off from divine resources. When you rely on your strength, you limit yourself to human capability, which is finite and fallible. The chosen are designed to operate with supernatural power, but self-reliance blocks that flow. It is like trying to run a machine without plugging it into its power source. Eventually, the machine breaks down, no matter how well it is built. Pride and self-reliance also blind you to your need for correction and growth. When you believe you have all the answers, you become resistant to feedback and unteachable. This stagnation is dangerous because the chosen are called to continually grow and evolve. Stubbornness and a refusal to acknowledge weakness or failure prevent the refinement necessary to reach your full potential. Most people don't grow because they are unhappy. They grow because they think they deserve to be better. These traits also grieve the heart of God because they deny Him the glory that is due to Him. The chosen are vessels through which God's power and wisdom flow. When you operate in pride and self-reliance, you take credit for what God has done through you, robbing Him of His rightful honor. This is not just a matter of ingratitude. It is a form of rebellion, as it places you on the throne that belongs to God alone. Ultimately, pride and self-reliance lead to spiritual separation. The chosen are meant to walk in intimacy with God, drawing strength and guidance from Him daily. Pride creates a chasm as it convinces you that you do not need that intimacy. Self-reliance widens the gap as it keeps you from seeking the help and wisdom that are essential to fulfilling your purpose. Everything else in your life will improve. The longer you operate in these traits, the more distant you become from the one who called you, until your status as chosen is compromised. To guard against pride and self-reliance, one must cultivate humility and dependence on God. These traits are not weaknesses. They are strengths that allow you to access the fullness of divine power and wisdom. Recognizing that every gift, talent, and opportunity comes from God keeps you grounded and ensures that your focus remains on Him rather than on yourself. Spiritual apathy is a subtle but dangerous condition that erodes the foundation of a chosen life. It is not an outright rebellion, but a slow drifting away from the fervor, discipline, and intimacy required to maintain a thriving relationship with God. Spiritual apathy often begins as a small seed of neglect, missing one prayer, skipping one day of study, or postponing moments of worship. Over time, this neglect grows into a pattern, dulling your sensitivity to the voice of God and weakening your commitment to His purposes. For the chosen, spiritual apathy is particularly perilous because it compromises the very essence of their calling. The chosen are set apart to lead, influence, and inspire, but this requires a constant connection to the source of their strength. Spiritual apathy disrupts this connection, leaving the individual operating on their own strength, which is limited and insufficient. Without the guidance and empowerment that comes from a vibrant spiritual life, the chosen become ineffective, losing the ability to fulfill their divine assignment. Apathy often takes root in the midst of busyness or routine. Life's demands can crowd out the time and energy needed to nurture your spiritual life. It may feel justifiable in the moment to prioritize work, family, or other responsibilities over prayer and devotion. However, this misalignment of priorities gradually shifts your focus away from God, leading to a diminished sense of purpose and direction. What was once a vibrant relationship with the Creator becomes a distant memory, replaced by mechanical rituals devoid of passion and meaning. The danger of spiritual apathy lies in its subtlety. Unlike blatant sin, it doesn't always provoke immediate alarm. Instead, it lulls you into a state of complacency, where you become comfortable with mediocrity in your spiritual life. You may still attend church, say the right words, and perform outward acts of devotion, but inwardly, the fire has dimmed. This lack of zeal not only affects your relationship with God, but also impacts your ability to influence others. The chosen are meant to be a light in the darkness, but apathy dims that light, rendering it ineffective. Spiritual apathy often leads to a loss of discernment. When you are no longer actively seeking God, you become vulnerable to distractions, temptations, and deceptions. Decisions that would once have been made with prayerful consideration are now made based on convenience or logic. This lack of spiritual sensitivity can cause you to miss divine opportunities or fall into traps that could have been avoided if your connection with God had been strong. Another consequence of spiritual apathy is the weakening of your faith. Faith is not a static attribute. It must be nurtured through continual engagement with God's Word and active reliance on His promises. When apathy sets in, your faith becomes stagnant, unable to grow or withstand the challenges of life. This can lead to doubt, fear, and a sense of helplessness, all of which are contrary to the identity of the chosen. Without a strong faith, it becomes nearly impossible to step into the boldness and authority required to fulfill your calling. Spiritual apathy also robs you of joy and peace. A vibrant spiritual life is characterized by a deep sense of fulfillment and contentment, even in the midst of challenges. Apathy replaces this with a sense of emptiness and disconnection, as the wellspring of life that comes from God's presence is no longer flowing freely. This lack of joy can seep into other areas of your life, affecting your relationships, your work, and your overall sense of purpose. One of the most tragic aspects of spiritual apathy is that it grieves the heart of God. He longs for intimacy with His chosen, not out of need, but out of love. When you drift into apathy, you reject the opportunity to experience the fullness of His presence and the depth of His love. This not only hinders your spiritual growth, but also delays the fulfillment of the promises He has for you. The chosen cannot afford to allow spiritual apathy to take root. It is a silent thief that steals passion, purpose, and power, leaving behind a shell of what could have been. To combat apathy, one must be intentional about cultivating a vibrant spiritual life, prioritizing time with God, and remaining vigilant against the subtle drift that leads to complacency. Recognizing the signs of apathy and addressing them with humility and urgency is essential to staying aligned with the high calling of being chosen. Toxic relationships and alliances are among the most destructive influences that can strip a chosen one of their status and purpose. The people you allow into your life have a profound impact on your thoughts, decisions, and spiritual trajectory. Toxic relationships, whether they are personal, professional, or spiritual, act as subtle but corrosive forces that can derail your progress, compromise your integrity, and sever your connection to your divine calling. A toxic relationship does not always announce itself as harmful. It often begins with charm, common interests, or a sense of mutual benefit. However, over time, the true nature of the relationship emerges. Toxic individuals may manipulate, control, or drain you, often steering you away from your values and priorities. These alliances are particularly dangerous for the chosen because they can create a conflict between pleasing people and obeying God. The chosen are called to live for an audience of one, but toxic relationships shift the focus, causing you to seek validation from others instead. One of the primary dangers of toxic relationships is their ability to distort your identity. The chosen are meant to walk in confidence, fully aware of their divine purpose. Toxic individuals, however, often undermine this confidence through criticism, manipulation, or deceit. They may plant seeds of doubt, making you question your abilities, your worth, or your calling. They shackle your growth and motivation to work toward your goals. Over time, this erosion of self-esteem can leave you vulnerable to compromise and distraction, pulling you further away from the path God has set before you. Toxic alliances also have the power to influence your decisions. The chosen are called to be discerning, making choices that align with divine principles and long-term purpose. However, toxic relationships cloud judgment, often leading to decisions driven by emotion, obligation, or fear rather than wisdom. When you align yourself with individuals who do not share your values or respect your purpose, their influence can lead you down paths that are inconsistent with your calling. The Bible offers numerous examples of the dangers of toxic relationships. One such example is Samson, whose relationship with Delilah ultimately led to his downfall. Samson was a chosen man, set apart by God to deliver Israel from its enemies. Yet, his alliance with Delilah, a woman whose loyalty was not to him but to his adversaries, led to his capture and the loss of his strength. This story serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of forming alliances with those who do not support or align with your divine purpose. Chapter 3. Toxic relationships also drain emotional and spiritual energy. The chosen are called to pour out into others, but this pouring out must come from a place of strength and abundance. Toxic individuals often take without giving, leaving you depleted and unable to fulfill your responsibilities effectively. They demand time, attention, and resources without contributing positively to your life. This imbalance creates a cycle of exhaustion, making it difficult to maintain focus and momentum in your calling. Furthermore, toxic alliances can hinder your spiritual growth. The chosen are called to walk closely with God, continually growing in wisdom, faith, and character. Toxic relationships, however, distract from this growth by consuming your time and attention with unnecessary drama, conflict, or negativity. They create an environment where spiritual disciplines like prayer, study, and worship are neglected, weakening your connection to the source of your strength. Perhaps most dangerously, toxic relationships can lead to compromise. When you are deeply connected to individuals who do not share your values, there is a constant tension between staying true to your principles and maintaining the relationship. Over time, this tension often results in small compromises that erode your integrity. These compromises may seem insignificant at first, but they create a pattern of behavior that ultimately distances you from God and undermines your calling. The chosen must recognize the importance of guarding their associations. Relationships are not just social connections. They are spiritual covenants that have the power to build up or tear down. Toxic alliances are not worth the cost, no matter how appealing they may seem on the surface. The chosen are called to walk in wisdom, surrounding themselves with individuals who encourage, support, and challenge them to grow in their purpose. Failure to do so can result in missed opportunities, damaged credibility, and a diminished impact on the world. To navigate this challenge, it is essential to remain vigilant and prayerful about the relationships you form. Seek divine guidance in identifying toxic influences and have the courage to set boundaries or sever ties when necessary. Remember that your calling is too significant to be compromised by relationships that do not align with the vision and purpose God has placed in your life. In conclusion, the status of being chosen is both a privilege and a responsibility. It demands vigilance, humility, and unwavering commitment to the principles that uphold your divine calling. Neglecting your purpose, compromising integrity, disobedience to divine principles, pride and self-reliance, spiritual apathy, and toxic relationships are not merely challenges. They are potential traps that can strip you of the identity and authority entrusted to you. Each of these pitfalls represents a deviation from the path of purpose, drawing you further from the source of your strength and the fulfillment of your destiny. To safeguard your position as chosen, you must remain rooted in God, constantly evaluating your heart, actions, and associations. This requires a lifestyle of intentionality, a dedication to spiritual growth, and a willingness to make the hard choices that preserve your alignment with divine will. The chosen are called to rise above mediocrity, to reflect God's glory, and to impact the world with His truth. The journey is not without its challenges, but the reward of walking in your divine purpose far outweighs the cost of compromise. Remember, being chosen is not about perfection, but perseverance. It is about continually returning to the one who called you, seeking his guidance, and realigning with his purpose when you falter. Guard your heart, nurture your spirit, and surround yourself with those who encourage you to walk boldly in your calling. In doing so, you will not only maintain your status as chosen, but also fulfill the extraordinary destiny God has prepared for you.